Okay, we're in Grants Pass, Oregon, with Elder Verne Bates, it's Thursday, August the 30th, 2001, and we're at the safe.
Where the books are stored. The way the books are arranged is we have a master copy made for every book. And if we have a book printed, when we get ready to print the book, we can just send the master copy, and that means that we don't have to send the book over there. Because the more you handle a book, of course, you know what would happen to it. So this book here is called The Life of William Miller. It's one we just have done. It's a brand new book out for us, 1875. Now, as you begin to read the older books, it's astounding what you'll find. It's just astounding. Things that you've never heard before in your life are in these older books. And it doesn't matter which way we go, which kind of a format. Now, here's a larger format. This one is the Prophetic Chronology by William Miller. And our printer will make them up to his choice. And he might run a 14-inch page, and so he will get 4 impressions on one page. And now here we got a blank there. I think that blank. Now here's 4 complete pages. When he gets them all run, he will set them in a pile in his cutters, and then he'll cut them. And when they're correlated, they're all lined up in where they're supposed to be. So it's a tremendous task. Mike has done this free of charge, making up master copies. Now, when I say free of charge, in the last few years we've given him $500,000 just from our business of reproducing books. So you can see that he's, in the long run, he's...
is Mike an Adventist?
He's a Mormon. Mike is a Mormon.
How come you don't use an Adventist?
Well, because Adventists didn't take care of him in the first place. So why would we want to trust them now? You see, we used to order from Pacific Press, and the last order we got, we needed the Spirit of Prophecy 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the last order we got from them, there was a note in there, and it said, unless you can prove your church membership, don't order any more books from us. Now that didn't look to me like it was very conducive to selling books.
Wow. And
we would place large orders. After that time, then we decided it was time for us to do our own Spirit of Prophecy books. Now, we can't produce as nice of books. I think the Adventists produce some of the finest literature on the face of the earth. We only can do a perfect bound. It's just a glued-on paper back. But the books came that way originally. And some of our books, 1863, I think, is some of our oldest books. And they're still readable and still usable after all those years.
How many originals do you have? I mean, what are the originals that you have within there?
You mean of the books themselves?
Yes.
All right. We could probably have to count them, but we're reproducing right now somewhere over 100 of the original books that give us the evidence.
When you say original books, you're talking about books. Now, babe, you want me to plug this light in so you get a little background?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. I mean, like, how many books did she write during her lifetime that she herself did?
Well, you've seen the picture. Yeah, you've seen the picture, right? They're about 6 feet of books. Have you seen that picture?
No.
Well, they boast that she wrote this great, huge stack of books. There's no question about her writing ability, but the publishing of the books, she named only 2 that she published, and that was Great Controversy and the Spirit of Prophecy books. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. That work was finished by 1884, started in 1870. Now, we'll read some very interesting quotations that have been removed from the books, like one I'm thinking in number 26. James White mentions there, he said, this work has continued for the long period of 20 years and yet remains unchanged. But as soon as he died, then the testimonies and all the other books, all were changed. Every book that you read is compiled by an author, a different author. And Sister White wrote that we are not to accept the voice of commentators as the voice of God. So the comments that you're reading are not to be accepted as doctrinal points. They're just not. There's too many changes.
Elder Bates, what great controversies did Ellen White write?
All right, the first one is the 1858. That was a vision that she had at Lovett's Grove as a funeral. And she had this vision on the way home on the cars, the railroad. Her and James White discussed the printing of that vision. That was the book that Satan attacked her the worst on. She nearly lost her life a couple of times before that book was finally written. It was finally published in 1858. You'll recognize it more in Spiritual Gifts Book 1. But we do have the book, and in its single copy. And that is the little 58 Great Controversy, actually published in 1858. And you see Ellen G. White. I don't think James White name even... Yeah, here it is at the bottom. Battle Creek, Michigan, published by James White.
You're tangled up here.
And you well,
Yes.
yeah. Now, it's interesting to notice this book was the first one that was actually attacked. They had to get rid of this book. You'll never guess the book that came from this. You'll never guess. Early Writings. Ellen White did not write the book Early Writings as it appears today. She didn't do that. And we tell people, if you'll take this book and you'll compare the first and second and third angel's messages, those individual chapters, and the firm foundation and the loud cry message, you'll never have confidence in Early Writings again. You never will. Because there's a difference in the way the books are written and the way they were rearranged as time went on. See? Now that Spiritual Gifts book came out in four different volumes, and I think I can show you. Here is the later volume, came out in 1858, and the two were compiled. Now these books are kind of fragile, so they were compiled. 1858, James White, but it has in here Spiritual Gifts Book 2 also. And the church, along about in the 60s, reproduced these, photostatically reproduced them. And they're authentic. If you have a little set of them at home, you've got a good set of books. This was probably the second book that I received when I became an Adventist. The first book, the Adventist gave me Early Writings, and I consumed that book. The next book I got was Spiritual Gifts 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, when I began reading Spiritual Gifts Book 1, Great Controversy, there were differences of the way Early Writings was written. And so I went to the pastor, and I said, why am I finding such discrepancies that this is inspired? Why the discrepancies? They gave me some lame excuse. As we pursued this, there came a day when, a Sabbath morning, as we went to enter the church, the church elder met us right at the door. And he said, Verne, you and your books are not welcome in the Adventist church anymore. So we just turned around, we left, we never did go back. But we knew that we had stumbled onto something because they hated the books that bad. It's an interesting story. We went to Elmshaven back in the 70s, from our family members. And at the time there was a man named Yox. That was the courier that would take your groups to the Sister White's home. And he was a little short Armenian man, and the story he told was very interesting. We got to the room where the angel appeared to Sister White, and he invited us to kneel down and pray. So he was praying, and I was listening, and the tears began to come down my face. And the things he was praying was striking a real chord in my heart. So when we got up, he said amen, and we got on our feet. I went right to him and said, Brother Yox, I need to ask you a question. What books do you use to study from? And he looked me right in the eye, and he said, I only use the original books. And I says, I knew it. I recognized that in your prayer. Well, he singled me out as we went through the whole building. We got into the library, and he said, I want to show you something. And there in a big long glass case was a plaque right down on the bottom shelf, and it said ordination. It was written kind of in an oval. Ellen G. White. And I said, I didn't know she was ordained. Read the bottom line. So I read the bottom line, real small letters, not by man. And then he whispered to me, he says, they never did accept her. And I says, I knew that. The church has never accepted Ellen White as a prophet, or as a messenger, as we call her. Never, ever did. So if she wasn't accepted in her lifetime, what do you expect in our lifetime? You see? They're not going to accept it anymore now. So you can expect to have problems.
She was walking, when she was walking among them,
they wouldn't accept her. You know.
Elder Bates, is the 1858 the only great controversy that she wrote?
No. We probably should have a little better situation.
Okay, you want to go out to the table? You want to bring
you
those?
know, that might be better. It would be easier for us to lay them out so it can be seen.
Okay.
All right.
I have forgotten how to turn this thing on.
hit the red button again. You're talking about stop recording?
Yeah, it's
Hit
off.
the red button again.
Wait, I don't have...
You need some help?
If you want to look at some, you can look while I'm bringing them out.
Oh my.
That's what I say.
Can I help you bring some in?
Oh, I'm just grabbing here
Okay.
a bunch at a time. Now you're looking at a lifetime here of gathering books.
Iterate your question.
I want to know if the 1858 Great Controversy is the only great controversy that Ellen White wrote.
Now that's what most people think of the 1911 Great Controversy or the 88 Great Controversy as the original book. You hear this all the time, even from church people, you know, leaders. But no, that's not. The first Great Controversy that was written it's called the Great Controversy between Christ and Satan. I'm looking for it here while we're talking. I must have, maybe I left it in here. It's Spiritual Gifts, Book 1. I'll have to get that so we can be sure and see it.
The little black one we
The
just
little
saw.
black we just
Okay,
saw it,
yeah, we
yes.
just saw that one.
Okay, now there's two of numbers. There's number 3, individual. Here's number 4, individual. We don't have an individual number 2, but we do have it in this book. And that also was published in those years, 1858 and onward, 1864. So volume 2 is also here. Now in our book file, we do have Spiritual Gifts 2 and 3 that we offer, and the Great Controversy book. If we can get these books done in volume, right now our 58 Great Controversy is going for $2.50. That's a pretty decent price. But we need to get 1,000 or 2,000 done at a time so that we can get, you know, and that's with any of the books. If we can get a volume of it, but we've never appealed to the people to help do that.
Okay, so these spiritual gifts, they're all great controversies.
No, only the first book is the Great Controversy book. The other one,
1858.
Experience and Views, and then finally, in number 4 is the Testimonies themselves, 1 to 10. But what we've noticed in here, when we begin to do this book, now the back part, let's see if I can come across this quickly here. The back part of the book is called the Testimonies to the Church, but in comparing this, we discovered that number 4 was missing, and that the first chapter of number 9 was missing, wasn't there. The first chapter is called The Rebellion. That didn't happen until about 1864, the time of the Civil War, so naturally it couldn't have been in the book previous to that. This way, we decided that when we did 1 to 10, we would have put those back in that were missing. I'm trying to find the beginning of the testimonies here so that we can see that.
Now, what book is that?
Now this is, okay, here it is. Testimonies for the Church in the back of 1 to 10. Now that's the first book that we have over there. We've reproduced the testimonies, and it's 1 to 10. The original ones were only just a few pamphlets, just a few pages, and they weren't put into this type of form till later on. But we did all of them. Number 9 on the Civil War, we put back in the first chapter of the Rebellion, and we've added number 4 back in to the 1 to 10, so that now it's all complete. It's a complete book.
Okay, I'm still not clear on this great controversy thing, though. Why is there an 1858, an 1884, an 1885,
Okay.
so on and so on?
Okay, these, they're not different books. Now, this is the Spirit of Prophecy. 1870, Ellen White began to write book 1. And as the years progressed, she, up to 1884, I should have that probably on the other side. As the years progressed from 1870, it was about, I think, 14 years, all 4 of the books were written. This great controversy, which bears that name, was from the fall of Jerusalem to the end of time. The little great controversy, 58, was from the fall of Lucifer to the end of time. So it's a different book, although there's many things in there that you could use. And incidentally, this name she selected was Spirit of Prophecy, volume 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, great controversy.
Great controversy. Now, when we come to the other great controversies, in fact, I think you can probably get a picture of that. When you come to the other great controversies, you'll have an 85, an 86, which is exactly the same as the 84. It's just additions when it was printed. Then you have the 87 and the 88. These 2 books were done in Australia. And it's quite ironic that I had those books, because I didn't know that they ever existed, and neither does anybody else, even to this day. I've asked people, did they believe in the original 88 Great Controversy? Oh, yes, we believe in it. Well, why does it differ from the American one? And they can't answer that, because they don't know. This book, we had a patient. She was with us for about 10 years. She'd been an Adventist for many, many, many years. She was 103 when she passed away. And when she left our establishment, her books were left here in a box. And they were sitting in the room. They'd cleaned the room out, and we didn't put another patient in there for quite a little while, and until all her things were removed. Well, one day I was walking down the hall, and something impressed me to go in and look at the books. I tried to give them away on a number of occasions. So I went in there, got on my knees, and I started pawing through this box of books. And would you believe I came up with that 88 Great Controversy published in Australia. Now that book has been an asset ever since that time. My daughter, one of my daughters, went to a bookstore in Portland, Oregon, and she found an 87 Great Controversy published in Australia. Now these are simply just editions. They're not different books. And as you check these 5 books, you'll find that these books, there's not a period or a paragraph that differs. It's exactly the same book. Now I'll put that in mine. So you got the 84.
That's the 84.
That's the 84, 85, 86, 87, and 88. Now when you get to these books, these are the American edition. There's possibly over 200 pages added to it. And if we take a little time here doctrinally to examine these books, you're going to be shocked at what you'll find hidden in these books. I've given lectures in churches where the minister would be translating, and this man you've just seen recently, and this man was dumbfounded. He said, I've read those books 5 times, never saw those mistakes. Now, why would a person not check a mistake? What do you think, Joe? They tell you it's inspired, didn't they? Do you look for mistakes when you read the Bible?
No.
No, you don't. So you accept that. Well, when I became an Adventist, I thought everything that Sister White wrote was inspired. Until one day I began to realize that there were some discrepancies in her writings. Now, people are noticing these things all the time, more and more now than they did years ago. Back through the years, I can only remember 3 that were onto book changes that really made it as a work. And that was a man, Elder C. Anderson. He was in East Stanwood, Washington. He was a conference ordained minister, finally left the church and began his own ministry. I have his writings here and all the studies that he gave. And he makes one statement. He says there's more than 20 changes in the book Great Controversy. Well, we have listed thousands of them, but he went as far as he could go. And then Brother Hohen in Canada, who's passed away now a couple of years ago. Brother Hohen was at it more longer than what I have been. his work was somewhat a little different than what we do. He would tell you the book changes and write you booklets, in which he sent out for years. In our work, we felt that the people had the right to have the book themselves. So we mechanically reproduce the books and offer them to people. We don't force them on them. If they want the books, they're available. And that's the way it's been for many years. These covers, incidentally, 288s, and this is a 1911 here, their covers were the same. But if you'll check the cover, let Joe see one of those covers. He didn't see that last night. You need to identify a book. Yeah, now these covers are the same. You need to identify a book when you read a book. Just don't pick up a book and just read the first and the last chapter. You need to identify this thing, because you'll find that nearly all books are pre-marked so that their book can be recognized. It's like the book Desire of Ages. A woman a few years ago, an older lady, she wanted to leave her money into some type of a ministry. So she told her family, I'm going to give a Desire of Ages to every Catholic priest I can find. So the family agreed, and she started out sending these to all the Catholic priests. Well, the response was traumatic. I said they commended her work, wonderful. But if I showed you what's in Desire of Ages, in which I hope today to do that, you'll find out that it's a Catholic book. And no wonder they are anxious for people to get it. And the same with this book. Now, you see the angel here is holding a key. You see that key there, Joe? You see what's in the inside of the key? A cross. Now, you'd never notice that, would you?
No.
Unless I pointed it to you. You'd never notice that. But that's the symbol. That's the Catholic symbol. It's a Catholic book. And you see the star up on top of the angel's head. The most evil sign in witchcraft today is that star. And of course it emanates with a radiant light. Down at the bottom you'll see Satan being cast out. What type of wings does he have? They're bat wings. They're actually depicted as bat wings. Does anybody know what kind of wings Satan had?
Yeah, okay.
You know what kind of wings Satan had? He was covered with the garment of the seraphim. He was a dazzling, beautiful. He stole that garment. And these garments, on the earth made new, we'll have these garments to wear. But here they got Satan depicted with bat wings on there. It's an occultish type thing, see? Yeah. It's strange that they would have that. Now on the outside cover, if any of you have been Catholics, you see that symbol at the top of the page of the book?
Hold it here so I can see.
Oh, wait, I was focusing
Okay.
on
Okay.
just a second. Wait a minute.
You see
let me get
that?
back up.
That's the sign of the Eucharist.
Wait a minute. Hold
Not
on.
long ago, I had a Catholic man come to me and said, well, can
Focus
you
on that.
believe this? He said, I was an altar boy.
Yeah.
And he says, that's the symbol on the Eucharist, when they use the Eucharist.
Okay.
It's just all over that book.
Yeah.
But yet we'll say, well, these books are inspired. No, those books are not inspired. No, it's designed to mislead. Well, the history of books is very intriguing. This book here is called Early Writings, which I mentioned a little while ago. This is the first published edition, 1882. And fact is, this is the second printing here. But 1882 is the date. I understand that was the first published edition, that's what I've been told. Published edition of Early Writings was 1882. Now the paging in this book are even different than the pagings in your book. The wording is pretty much the same. I don't think I've ever even tried to check to see if there's a discrepancy from one to the other. But the book is not reliable. It's a book that's very well read by lots of people, but it's not a reliable book, because that was the one that took the place of the Great Controversy book.
That was Early Writings?
Early
Is that
Writings,
what you
yes.
said? Okay.
Sister White did not write the book Early Writings. If you need a reference on that, you'd use your Review and Herald book 5. You'd start on page about 80, 81. And there's an article written there by Haskell, Elder Haskell. And he says largely largely the book Early Writings is a compilation. Let's see if we can find a quotation on that very point there. Let's see if I can find the book here. I'm thinking of the book Gospel Workers. I don't seem to be able to put my finger right on it here. It's 192, the 1892 Gospel Workers. And it says, right there it is. Is that the book right there? Let me see. No, that's volume 5. I'm sorry, I didn't have that right here at my fingertips. It says on page 126, we are not to accept the voice of commentators as the voice of God. They are erring mortals like ourselves.
Why don't you pause that so that he can go get that?
Workers. A lady just told me a few days ago that when the 1915 early writing, life sketches came out, the California Conference asked that this book be returned to the conference. They brought them in by the carloads as they gathered them in the churches, and they built a fire and they burnt them all. Now there's quotations in here that are simply not in your Gospel Workers. It's just been taken out. Listen what this says. This is on 126. The Bible must not be interpreted to suit the ideas of men, however long they may have held these ideas to be true. We are not to accept the opinion of commentators as the voice of God. They were erring mortals like ourselves. So as you look at these books, all those red books that you purchased, they're there by a commentator or someone that'll write an article and make Sister White said this or Sister White said that. And the easiest way to win an argument, if you're in a deep argument with somebody, is just say, well, would you give me the reference so I can look it up myself? And they never know where it's taken from. You can win. I've won thousands of arguments in that very manner. Oh, I'm sorry. I've read it, but I can't remember where I read it. Now, you talked about testimony treasures. I'll show you the testimonies. These are 3 volumes that is arranged by the church. And they took selections, and they put them in here. And they called it testimony treasure. Some countries like Brazil, they have testimony treasures. They do not have the testimonies, and they're just pieces and parts. I'll give you one illustration here. We turn to page 475 in this book, and I'm going to have you read something for me. Let's see, I think I went too far. It's 443. Read that quotation out loud for us right there. Now this is Testimony Treasure, Book 3.
In reviewing our past history, having traveled over every step of advance to our present standing, I can say, praise God. As I see what the Lord has wrought, I am filled with astonishment and with confidence in Christ as leader. We have nothing to fear for the future except as we shall forget the way the Lord has led us and his teaching in our past history.
All right, now what's the date on that?
1915 Life Sketches.
All right, 1915. So then if I understand that correctly, we have nothing to fear in front of us, except we forget the way the Lord has led us and his teachings in back of us, from 1915 back. Is that the way you understand that?
Except as we shall forget the way the Lord has led us and his teaching in our past history.
Okay, so from 1915 it says a parting word. Sister White was dying, and this is a quotation she made. So from 1915, the teachings from 1915 back was the message that we needed to have. Now let's see what happens here. In the Life Sketches book, 1915, listen what it says. It starts on page 194. October 25, 1869. Quite a while back, wasn't it? While at Adams Center, New York, I was shown that some ministers among us failed all the responsibilities that God would give them. Now, this testimony was given in 1869. Now, this is what's in this testimony. In reviewing our past history, having traveled over every step of advance to our present standing, I can say, praise God. As I see what the Lord has wrought, I am filled with astonishment, with confidence in Christ as leader. We have nothing to fear for the future, except as we shall forget the way the Lord has led us, and his teaching in our past history. What past history? 1869 back to 1844. That was where the true message. That's when the quotation was given. And they've taken that and they've changed the dates. as went along so that it would confuse the mind and you would believe that those messages came from that period of time.
Well, that's what this says. It says a parting word of confidence.
Yes, and 1915.
Yes.
Now, we'll take another book here. This is Testimonies to Ministers. And let's see what we find. 1923.
May I see the cover of that?
Yeah, just a minute. Let me see if I got the
Okay.
right page here. Oh, yeah, here's Testimonies to Ministers.
Okay.
This is a 1923 edition. I'm going to see if I can locate it. I don't have this one. Yeah, here it is. It's on page 31. Now listen carefully. In reviewing our past history, having traveled over every step advanced to our present standing, I can say praise God, word for word. As I see what God has wrought, I am filled with astonishment and with confidence in Christ as leader, word for word. We have nothing to fear for the future except as we shall forget the way the Lord has led us, period. What's missing?
And his teaching in our past history.
That was left out. And his teaching in our past history. So now, 1923, we have nothing of the past history of his people. It's all been taken out.
Tampered with.
It's not in your Sabbath school lessons. It's in nothing. It's all been taken out. Now, see if I can locate this book here. Testimonies to Ministers. 1944. Probably the ones that you have. They have newer ones too. Now on page 31, listen to what it says. This is not a reliable book. I'm not telling you to throw that book away. What I'm telling you to be on your toes because somebody is being fooled. See? Now this reads exactly the same. Then it says, we have nothing to fear for the future except as we shall forget the way the Lord has led us. It reads exactly like 1923, but not in our past history. You want to look at it again? It's a strange thing as things came. They couldn't hide everything because there were people through the years that were alert and would put these articles in print. And one of them, our Seventh Adventist Doing God's Will by Elder Brisbane. The value of this book is the fact that a lot of his material came from the Tasmania articles. Now, the Tasmania articles were written while she was in Australia, and the quotations appear exactly like Sister White recorded them. If you'll turn that Testimonies to Ministers, page 79, I'll give you a little illustration here. Let's see. Joe, would you like to help us too? Hand that to me, please. Turn to page 79. Now, this is just a very simple illustration. I'm going to turn to the Brisbane book, page 13. Now, what we're doing here is we're simply using the old books and comparing them with the new books. That's all we're doing. Now, if you don't see a problem, then everything is all right. But if there's a problem here, I would like to have somebody tell me something. Now, listen to what it says. The perils of the last days are upon us. Have you found that? Right at the, is it the very bottom? Okay. I'm reading from the Tasmania article, which is found in the Brisbane book. Okay. The perils of the last days are upon us. Read Matthew 26, 14, 15, and 16.
No.
What you got, Joe?
25:14.
All right. Now, his book says Matthew 25, 14. The original testimony says Matthew 26, 14, 15, and 16. Now, what does your book say?
Nothing.
There's no Bible verse at all.
No.
So the Bible verse came when it was written to Elder Olson at General Conference that the perils of the last days were on us. Read Matthew 26, 14, 15, and 16. That verse is the betrayal of Judas. So we understand now that we are going to be betrayed. That's what the testimony read. But when it was printed in 1923 in the Testimonies to Ministers that Joe has, they changed it to Matthew 25, 14. It's a parable that says a man taking a journey into a far country. There is no peril there. But finally, when it came down to 1944 in Testimonies, they took the Bible verse out altogether. So we don't know what the peril is.
So from the original, you have Matthew 26.
6, 14, 15, and 16.
The second time it came around, used
25, 14.
25, 14, and then finally by the third time it went around, it was taken out altogether.
No Bible verse at all. Yeah.
And what's the date on that book?
This date was given as in 1895.
And it was
written in Australia.
By a man named Brisbane.
No, now Brisbane compiled this from Sister White's Tasmania article. He simply put it in his book.
Oh, so those are actually Ellen White.
This was Ellen White's quotation from the Tasmania article. Now, I might mention to you, we've been hunting for the Tasmania article probably for 45 years. We've never found one. Neither has anybody else. We've had people from Australia contact us, and please explain the Tasmania article to us. They don't even know about it.
So would it say on the cover Tasmania?
Well, we know from yes, I think it would say on the inside there's an index.
Were they published articles at one time?
Yeah, articles that were sent to the General Conference for workers and ministers and workers.
Well, let me tell you about a recent conversation I had with the head of the Texas ABC. About a year ago, I'd ordered a video. I mean, not a video, but a CD with all of her published writings. And as a result of your review and present truth articles, I discovered that many of the early review articles were not on that disc. And I called the ABC and I told them that this disc does not have all of her published writings. And he says, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Why? What's missing?" And I said, "Well, for one thing, her early review articles are not complete on here." And he said, "Oh." The guy that I initially talked to, who was a worker there at the ABC, said that he had at least a half a dozen complaints along that same area, that those were not all of her published writings on that disc. The second call a return call that I got back from the ABC was the guy who managed it, and he asked which version of the CD that I got, and I said I got the next to the highest one that there was. I didn't want the guided tour. I just wanted all of her published writings to finish out my library. And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, this is advertised one way, and it's not. I'm not getting what I paid for." I said, I paid for all of her published writings, and that's not it. So if those Tasmanian articles were published writings, then
they should be on there.
They should be on there,
right.
And they're not.
I know where you can get a very, very accurate set is a man named Charles Elliott in New Hampshire, White Speed, and I think Dennis Crystal probably has White Speed. Bob Van Cannon, Dennis Crystal, are pretty good friends. And
I have a question.
yes,
You said that book is compilation
yes,
of her writings.
yes.
And so why do we accept that and we're not accepting some of these other books that are compilations?
That's a very good point, and I was kind of hoping somebody would mention that. In the earlier pioneers, they simply arranged things that were current in their day. Now, we can use the same illustration today with the newer books. Messages that are current in our day were not current in their day. For instance, 1888 materials. Those earlier men, even 50 years ago, never heard of 1880 materials. It was just released. Now, I have not much confidence in those, because in comparing, that's where the secret is. If you're interested enough, you'll read a quotation, you'll want to verify that quotation. If you can't verify it, then don't use the quotation. If it's a manuscript, you might want to go with the White Estates, and chances are you wouldn't be able to get it verified there. They wouldn't let you in the vault to see it. I don't think just everybody can go in there. So Elder Brisbane evidently was having church difficulty. Either his age was against him or whatever it was, but he stepped out. Now he lists the article where it's taken from, the Tasmania articles, which he possessed, and he put that in his book. Now, I'll show you a mistake here that was in this book. Now, I don't know whether it's a typo or what it is, but listen what it says. Sister White, referring to the 1888 conference in Minneapolis, she says, "I shall never, I think, be called to stand under the direction of the Holy Spirit as I stood at Minneapolis. The presence of Jesus was with us." Now, I read that for years, until one day I discovered in Spalding of a Gang collection, page 34, it reads this way. the presence of Jesus was with me. We also found in Series A, 173, the same thing. The presence of Jesus was with me. So then we knew that this was a typo. When that happened in Minneapolis, there was the only one that recognized the Holy Spirit was Sister White. Jones didn't. Wagner didn't. None of them. Butler did. None of them recognized the Holy Spirit's presence except Sister White. Is it any wonder that that angel folded its wings and went back? It has not brought that message back. People are telling us we're hearing the loud cry, but don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. When that loud cry comes, it'll be with 10 times the power of the midnight cry. It'll rattle the bones of this earth from one corner to the other. And I hope, and by that time I've divested myself of all error so I can recognize it. And that's where the secret comes. So that's the reason why we use the Brisbane, our Seventh-day Adventist doing God's will. The quotations that we find in here, we are able to verify. And they're very important. They're very important. We'd like to have the Tasmania articles. There's another one here that we've been hunting for, and I think probably dozens of other people have been. Listen to what this says. It's on page 10. In 1888, in the General Conference held at Minneapolis, Minnesota, the angel of Revelation 18 came down to his work and was ridiculed, criticized, and rejected. And when the message he brings again will swell unto a loud cry, it will again be ridiculed and spoken against and rejected by the majority. Now that is from Taking Up a Reproach. No one has ever found that booklet. I don't think it's a large book. I think it's just more or less a tract. No one's ever found it.
Taking Up
a Reproach. Taking Up a Reproach. If that's the case, you see, it was Christ himself that came, and the church rejected. And that's exactly what happened. It rejected.
Okay.
And we certainly don't want to do that now. We certainly don't want to do that now. Well, we'll progress a little bit.
All right.
Let's take the testimonies.
Wonderful.
Do you have them all?
I have all 30 numbers. Where we told you last night that number 27 is not in this collection. We've not been able to get 27. We have it photocopied, so we can produce it. But
how did you get number 27?
I didn't get number 27. There was a man in Loma Linda said he had a 27, and we offered him a set of testimonies that he would photocopy for us and send them to us. So he agreed to it. We sent the set of testimonies. He sent the photocopy, but it was very poorly done. We did reproduce it. There are some pages that you can't read on the inside because he didn't fold it open properly, and probably he didn't want to destroy the book. And some people place a more estimate on the value of the book than what's on the inside of the book. And we took the different route. We was interested in what's on inside the book. And in many cases we had to destroy the book. We had to cut the page, the binding, so that we could get it folded open properly so we could get a good copy. Now that is testimony number 9. I think there's a copy of it right there. Joe wants to see it. Actually, I can show you the disfigurements in that. If you turn to the first page.
Let me bring it up here so that you can see what it looks like, one next to the other.
Okay.
Let's see the front of it compared to this.
It's slightly larger, but that's the very same book, and it's photostatically or mechanically reproduced. When you turn on the inside, you can see some of the disfigurements there, so you can make sure that it's not. Wait, you want to take a picture of that?
Flip it open.
Okay.
What, page 1?
For page 1. You'll see a black mark on the page.
Mm-hmm.
You see the black mark there? Well, there's the black mark. He couldn't get it out. And he was very sorry about that. All the other marks he got out. But he couldn't get those real dark, those 2 spots.
There was a smudge on 1 and 2.
This way just a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's see. I want to get a close-up of this original. Wait a minute. Okay.
You had the print enlarged a little bit so that it's for easier reading.
Right. We enlarged it somewhat.
But the text is the same.
It's only photographic. All of our books are photocopied, so there's no chance. If there's a mistake in that book originally, then you'd find the same thing when it's photostatic.
So as we read these things, if we get a copy that has an underline in a certain area, it's because the person who owned it originally underlined it,
right,
and you photocopied it, and reproduced it and sent it out just the way that you got the original.
Yeah. There are some people that complain about that underlining. Now, your Great Controversy is probably the worst, because I think it was taken from my own personal collection. So, But some people, we have some books here that have got a single pencil mark in them. But this now is on the rebellion. It's quite interesting on one of the pages here. Let's see if I can't find this. I think it's on page 7. Yeah. It's on page 6, the bottom of page 6. It says, I was shown that God's people, who are his peculiar treasure, cannot engage in this perplexing war. That was a civil war. For it is against every principle of their faith. They cannot obey the truth if in the army. Now this is a very direct statement. When they put that in volume 1 in your testimony books, they altered that statement because Adventists offer themselves to the government in wartime. But in the original it says they cannot obey the truth if in the army. You just can't do it. So there's people that are telling you, oh, there's no significant changes. There are no changes. They don't know what they're talking about.
Can I see the little envelope on that?
Okay.
Or what it's
Yeah.
in? Okay. Is that how you received it?
That's exactly how we received it many, many, many years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Did you buy that book, or was someone?
All right,
Did they give it to
that's
you?
an
or-
interesting story. It was a Sabbath. We was occupying our nursing home at the time. And the Sabbath day, we held meetings in the lobby. It was a nice, beautiful, large room. And that Sabbath, there was a man, his wife, and 3 children came. And the oldest girl was about 17, 18. And when she came in that morning, she said, Brother Bates, did you know the leaves of autumn are offering the original testimonies? Oh, I could hardly wait for the Sabbath to get over with. Excuse me for saying that, but I was so anxious. The sun set, I was on the telephone, and would you believe somebody was in their office in Payson, Arizona. I said, do you still have the testimony? Yes, we do have. What kind of a price you got on it? He quoted the price, and I was scared to death. So I said, I want all of them, all that you have. Would you hold them for me till I can get a check there? She said, yes, we will. So the next Monday, we sent them a check for the entire amount of the books. And,
You just got a single copy of each one.
Of each one, yeah. Now, they weren't all complete. So in a few days...
What do you mean they weren't all complete?
Like number 30 was missing. Number 16 was missing.
Oh,
Number
okay.
27 was missing. And let's see if I can find
Oh,
you.
it wasn't a complete set.
It wasn't a complete set, but it was all that they had.
But the pages in the books were all in sequence. There were no pages missing.
No, they were all good.
All right.
Let's see. Let's see, there's number 29. I'll open that up so you can see it.
All right.
Now this is the original testimony. We've cut the page, the strings that held it together so that the book would lay flat so that we could photocopy it. Otherwise you can't photocopy the inside. No. Now number 29. As we come, I was giving studies up the road here a few miles, and there was an old man there that was, his family were receiving the studies. And Brother Sprode is his name. And we had been there several weeks on Sabbath afternoon. And one Sabbath afternoon he said to me, he said, would you bury me when I die? And I said, well, Brother Sprode, yes, I'll do that. Well, when he passed away, I did. I had his funeral. But on one of those occasions, when I got there, they came with a big plastic bag and set it at my feet and asked me if I'd look. So I went through those books, and I took, they give them to me, and I took all, that mostly were the testimonies, and I took the ones that I did not have. I didn't want to be selfish. I wish now I had taken them all, because I don't even know what, they didn't care for them. They hadn't preserved them. You see, they're just in an old plastic bag. And that's where I got some of these numbers, was from the Sprode family. I'm trying to find number 30 here. You can see how that was arranged.
While you're looking, I have a question.
Okay.
How much do you sell the original testimonies for today? The ones you reproduce, how much do you sell them for?
All right, that's, I think they're around $96 for 30 numbers.
Okay, and now a real personal question.
Okay.
Can we know how much you paid for these originals from Leaves to Autumn?
Most of them were about $100 a piece. Number 9 was $100. We get down to like number 12 here. It didn't have a cover. This is testimony number 12. It was $75.
That little book right there
That
was
little book, they
$75.
charged $75, and there's only 96 pages in the book. See? And it didn't have a cover. Had it had a cover, they would have won $100 for it. Now, the way we make the cover is we just follow the same pattern as the other ones. Testimonies of the Church, and we put number 12 and Battle Creek.
What was the year of that production on that?
All right, now we might have to get one of the other books to see that. I'm not sure I can tell you without getting the book.
Oh, it's not that big a thing.
Well, I'd like to. This is number 12 that we reproduce, and 1867. But it's very, very important in the reading of that material. It's very important. I think number 13 is my favorite of all the testimonies.
Elder Bates, did Leaves to Autumn have several copies of these testimonies? Or a few, or...
I think that he probably has a personal library. Now, I'm just supposing this.
Okay.
I couldn't imagine a person dealing with books that wouldn't have a personal library.
Who is this?
Gar Braybrooke in Payson, Arizona, Leaves of Autumn. I would imagine he may have one of the best collections that there are on the face of the earth. I know if I were collecting books, I'd want to have the very best ones on my library.
Have you contacted him about those Tasmanian?
No, others have, though. They don't do too well with us. Independent ministries don't do that well with us. Most everyone thinks that we're tearing down the testimonies instead of trying to build them up.
I'm just wondering if they had several sets of these, and other people bought these. How come you're the only ones trying to get them out?
That's a pretty good question.
Dumb question?
That's a pretty good question. I don't think anybody else cares.
Well, what's your attitude about these
excuse
books?
me, there's number 30 right there. See, there's no cover on number 30. This came from the Sprud collection here. It was in a plastic bag, and I was surprised. Later on, the daughter came, and she did give me some other books that they had.
Okay.
Now, to answer that question again, who was it that asked something? Did I forget?
No, I was just asking if Leaves to Autumn had several of these books they were selling. I mean, was there just one set and you got them, or were there several?
That's what I'm supposing.
Oh, really?
Because years later, someone mentioned to them that they were being reproduced, and they were surprised that they were being reproduced.
They probably thought you would never do anything with them.
Right. When I was canvassing in 1951 out of the Book and Bible House in Spokane, I discovered among the Adventists, now the Upper Columbia Conference was the richest conference the Adventists had years ago. And I discovered among the Adventist people that none of them had the testimonies. Very few had the testimonies. So I went back to the conference office with this burden on my mind, and I asked them all the books that were returned to the conference if I could have them, the testimonies. And they gave them to me. So I'd go down in the basement, and I'd go through the piles of books, and I would pick out the testimonies. And I'd carry them with me when I was canvassing. And if I came to an Adventist family, and they didn't have the testimonies, I would give them that set of testimonies. Now, my burden for the testimonies has been since I was just a young man. So it's only natural as time would go on that we didn't even know that how the original testimonies were written until about 1970. And there was meetings being held down near Sacramento, which we traveled on once a month. And they'd have a speaker this month and the next speaker next month, and they would take turns. Well, my turn would come, and then I would present what I usually book changes my topic. And one of the elders that had left the church, he said, well, Brother Bates, if you don't have the paper-bound testimonies, you don't have the originals. Well, the lights really went on. So from that point on, we hunted for the paperbacks, not the cloth-bound ones. And the Lord rewarded us as years went by until we have all except number 27. Now, some of them were placed in little volume. Now, there's number 16. Somebody put them in a little binding. See, testimony number 16. And it's very nice. It destroyed the book as far as being an antique is concerned. But number 16 was bought at a book sale at Loma Linda. It was $100. It was a very expensive book. So, but we finally got number 16. A man bought it, called us, and we, fact is, we gave him $100. I don't know exactly what he did pay for it. Now here's number 19, a very important book again. And these are from the paperback books.
Mm-hmm.
What was that other one?
The other was number 16. So there's a number of them here that we have. Here's number 22. Testimonies of the Church, number 22.
That was privately done?
Yeah, I would imagine somebody probably had a burden for it and it was falling to pieces, so they just did that. You want to look at one of them, you can.
Mm-hmm. What about these 3-volume sets of the testimonies, and they're numbered 1 through 30?
Yes, that's the older sets. I think actually they are numbered 1 through 37, aren't they?
Or something like that.
Yeah. See, volume 9 is number 37. But if I was to give you an illustration of that very thing, I would take this book. I think I'll have Joe help me with this. I'll turn to 265, and this is your volume 9. And let me get the right page here. Okay. You start in this third paragraph, Joe, and I'll read it to you the way it was written.
And what are you reading out of right there?
I'm reading from the Review and Herald articles.
Okay. Now, have these articles been altered?
Yes, they have. They have drastically.
All of them?
We can't be sure of all. I know where the originals are, but I can't get the people to turn them loose. We understand that a church in Denver, Colorado has had them since way back in the 30s. The original collection was from Elder Waggoner's collection. As those were written, he saved them. They were given to this church, a couple of ministers, somewhere about 1937. That's what the story, I understand it. And as time went on, I canvassed for them at one time. And they would write a little magazine, and they would put this article by Sister White in the magazine. And they were very, very good articles. The General Conference people from the Seventh-day Adventist Church, they finally contacted me and said, "Where are you getting these articles?" Well, thank you. "Where are you getting these articles?" And the man says, "Well, we have the original reviews." So the church said, "Well, now we think that the church should have those. They belong to the church, and we'll buy them from you." And they wouldn't sell them to them. I'm sure you would realize what would have happened if they'd have gotten the refuse. Now, Joe, follow me. You're in that third paragraph. Mm-hmm. Let's see if we can pick it up. "Of those who boast of their light and yet fail to walk in it, Christ says, 'But I say unto you,'" have you found me yet?
No. On the third paragraph.
Yeah. "Thou Capernaum."
Oh, okay.
Okay, here we go. "And thou Capernaum, bracket, Seventh-day Adventist, comma, who have had great light," in the bracket, "which are exalted into heaven," bracket,
Stop him if
point
so.
and privilege.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah,
It's not in there. It's
that's
gone.
almost the whole sentence.
Now listen, a little ways farther. "In point and privilege, which art exalted into heaven," let's see, "in point and privilege," now we're going, "shall be brought down to hell." They tell me the church is going through to the kingdom. Sister White said the church is going to be brought down to hell.
Wait, what was left out of Joe's?
All right, Joe didn't have, "and thou Seventh-day Adventist, who have had great light." That was taken out of the quotation. That's in volume 9, page 265.
Mm-hmm.
And then this was taken out. "In point and privilege, no other church ever enjoyed the privileges that Seventh-day Adventist churches enjoyed." And then it says, it was left out, "shall be brought down to hell." Is that in there?
Yeah.
That was left in.
that's-
"Shall be brought down to
Church
hell."
shall be brought down to
But
hell.
the name Seventh-day Adventist, which was
No.
inserted, that was taken out.
Taken out.
They just have Capernaum and not Seventh-day Adventist
Yeah.
afterwards?
They left the name out, Seventh-day Adventist.
Wow.
And that's from
Isn't that
the
amazing?
Review and Herald.
Yeah, book. Now, if you find any article that you'd like a photostatic copy of, you should make a note of it. And then when we finish this tape, I'll make those copies for you.
Yes,
So-
could I see that book? Which one is that?
Oh, this is a Review and Herald.
So we have
It's book 3, page 69. I think these are kind of out of date now. I think they quit printing. But you book collectors will find them for you. A little spendy, but we did have a contact that would help us get them. I think one set we paid $59 for, another set about $125 or $50, somewhere along in there. And we have another set back there, but that was my mother's set, and we let that go. And after we let it go, we said, what have we done? Because Mom's library is right there where I sit in her library, just like she left it. So we got another set, and we took them, we traded them, and they traded back with us, so we get those books back again. So we lived, and my mother had given all her books to Anna, so we didn't want to.
But there's 5 of these books, is that
There
correct?
are 6 of them.
6?
There are 6.
And every one of them have been tampered with?
Every one of them have been altered, changed in one way or another.
Okay.
Prophets and Kings was largely promoted from the review articles. You can check in book 631 to 635, and you go to in Prophets and Kings. Let's see, it's in Desire of Ages, that chapter is 627, 628. And you'll see, if you compare that, you'll absolutely be shocked of what's in there. It's just, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If Sister White, let me just, for instance, if
Yeah.
Sister White only published, let's say, 10 books, what was the purpose of those 10 books publishing another 50
Okay, or 500.
or 500?
Now, what do you think would be the reason?
Money.
Okay.
It became the biggest business the church had was literature. No church on the face of the earth ever made the success with literature work that the Adventists have done. They stand without a peer. And so what they found out, that every time they put E.G. White on a book, every Adventist would buy one. So if there's 11 million Adventists out there, there'd be 11 million books go. You see the point? And so they come up with education. They come up with counsels on health, come up with diets on foods. Those are all in the testimonies. They just
Last
took
Day
those
of
pieces
Vance.
out and made a book out of them.
Last Day of Vance.
Oh yeah, all those things. Every single one of them. They produced and they extracted from you the money for those books. Now, people often ask the question, well, didn't Sister White know? Didn't she know that what was happening? Well, yes, she did know. And she did know, but the Lord told her, in fact, let's use this Brisbane book here. The Lord told her to say nothing. At one time, time prophecy was the test for God's people. Now, believe it or not, it's the message that's the test. And it has the same effect on God's people that time prophecy had. There was never a time in the history of the Advent people when there was more alertness than when time prophecy was presented. But now, as the message is being presented, you can't hardly get people to sit down and listen to you. We've even called sometimes a few years ago, some of the ministers in the area wanted a meeting, and the independent ministries. And we had a terrible time. We had a terrible time with these fellows. Try to get them to sit down long enough to even look at anything. One man, fact is, I think he's in that Bend area right now in a conference church. And he says, I don't want this on video. He didn't want to be exposed. And the man that came with us, we had our machine there. And he didn't shut his machine off. And we actually have that on videotape here. If that man knew that, he'd have a fit. We got some interesting comments about this fellow. Now, let's see what I was going to look at. It's on page 27.
That she knew her writings were being tampered
Oh,
with.
I should say so.
Yeah.
I should say so. But, you know,
It must have pained her.
I think she died a martyr. There's no question in my mind that Sister White didn't die a martyr. Let's see what we got here. This comes to my mind.
Yeah, I think that was what you were looking up, right?
About yes, I was going to
What
look
she
up
said.
about the change. Listen to what this said. This is a Crest collection. You can get this from Leaves of Autumn.
Who was Crest?
Dr. Crest. There were several very important people. Dr. Paulson, Dr. Crest, Dr. Sutherland, and Percy McGann. Those men, the Sister White sent them personal communications. And those were put in book form, and that's what we have today.
These are the communications between Ellen White
And those
this-
individuals,
and this
yes.
individual.
And those were selected, put in selected portions. Now here's the unpublished testimonies. Now our book, I don't have one right here. Our book is very handsome. My wife designed the cover, and it's a very handsome book. In fact, if you want to see one, I'll take time to get it for you so you can see it. This one was more or less hand-typed back in the 60s, even before the computer came along. And there are a lot of little places where there was misspelled words. We simply photographed it like it was, and we made our book out of it. We've done the same thing with Series B, Loma Linda Messages, and some of those others. We wasn't going to do those books, but people began to ask us for the books, and so then we started reproducing them. Listen what she says on page 19 of the Crest collection. Truths are being used to serve the purpose of upholding theories that I have repeatedly condemned. There are those who persist in taking the precious representations given me by God and weaving them in with sentiments that God never designed should be presented to his people. I protest against this use of my writings, and I am forced to speak to this conference saying, be not deceived, God is not mocked. He who misapplies or misplaces and misapplies the precious things of God is sinning against heaven. Every time you pass out a book that has misapplied the truth or misrepresents the truth, you are responsible. You're responsible, or I'm responsible. I quit canvassing. I said I will not canvass something where there's error in these books. We didn't even start printing books until about 84, I guess. 83, 84, I think it was. Photo reproducing them. We were asked to speak at a camp meeting, an independent camp meeting. And they asked me to speak on book changes. Well, I knew Mr. Hohen was going to be there, so I refused to go. I said, Hohen is there, he's better at it than I am, let him do that work. No, they wanted me to do it. Well, after about 4 calls, I finally said, okay, I'll come. Well, I did go. And as we got there, when my meeting came, there was so much unrest. There was men out there fighting one another, fist fighting. It was that bad. So finally, when our meeting came, they said they'd give me 1 hour. I said I wouldn't disgrace these books for 1 hour. Give my hour to somebody else. So finally, they extended to 1.5 hours, so I took it. And right in front of me, there was a young man sitting there, and he was listening. And all of a sudden, he stood right on his feet. He said, it's all right for you to talk the way you do about these books. He says, you're the only one that has them. And you know, that hit me like a bolt of lightning right across the head. I couldn't believe what I listened to. That young man left that meeting. He'd just become an Adventist. He'd bought all of Sister White's books he could get his hands on. He threw the books away, and he gave up the message. Well, then they blamed me for doing that. I said, no, that wasn't my fault. He never had the message.
Right.
You see, he never had it in the first place, or he would have waded right through that thing.
Right.
So we got home. I said to my wife, I said, you know, that young fellow was correct. We're the only ones that's got them. And I think we better start doing something about it. So we started right instantly. The first chance we got, we started reproducing books. Until today, as you can see, we've probably done around 100 now of the Adventist books, so people can have them. If they're interested, wonderful. If they're not interested, there's nothing we can do. Or if you buy the books, take them home and don't read them, there's not a thing we can do.
Is your collection representative of everything that she wrote originally?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. All we have is what we have been permitted to have. It's like this Miller book. We just done this Miller book. I don't know if I can even show it to you here. I'm not that familiar with the book yet. Yeah, here it is, here. Now this is in plastic. Mike put this back in plastic, and we really appreciated that. This is The Life of William Miller by James White, 1875. We never knew the book existed. Came into our hands through one of my son-in-laws who found a number of books. He bought them for me and donated them to our work as about $800 gift.
Man.
Now this is one of them. Here's another one that we just see. This one has been reproduced. Now, Gospel Primer by Edson White. It's an excellent children's book. And it's done, it's teach children how to read. And this is what he used in the South, to teach children how to read. And the Gospel Primer. Now, I'm sure they are still putting this book out. There's a different name. It may be called Best Stories from the Best Book now. The titles have nearly all changed on the books. But that is the Gospel Primer, way back in those 1890s.
Primer was a term that they used for a beginner whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And it's a term that's lost its meaning today.
Yeah.
But that had to do with schoolwork.
That was schoolwork, and that's how the book was designed.
Have you reproduced this book?
We have, yes, we have it in stock here.
Ah, we've got some children in Texas.
Oh, have you?
Need that book.
Christ Our Savior we have done. That, in fact, is, I don't see that. Oh, here it is right
Is that
here.
for children also?
Christ Our Savior, Sister White. They call it today The Story of Jesus. They've changed the name.
Okay.
This is a nice little book. We have a lot of success with that little book.
That is another one for children.
Another one for children.
Okay.
And you
Good to
copied
know.
that one?
Huh?
You copied that one?
Yeah, we have photo reproduced it. The people are concerned about copyright. We thought copyright ran out about every 30 years, but we're told now that it could extend to 100 years. So some of our books are way past copyright period. But if we are doing books, like a book by F.C. Gilbert, we have a lot of confidence in Elder Gilbert's work. Messiah and His Sanctuary. We reproduced this book for a number of years. It's all on the sanctuary, and it's kind of in a Sabbath school format, questions and answers. When we got ready to do the book, because it was written about 1937, one of the school teachers in the area, an Adventist school, we asked him if he would see if he could get a permission for us to. So he called the church, general conference, and they said they weren't interested in the book anymore. So they told us, and he said, well, are you sure? He said, I'll go a step farther. He called the family, and the family said, no, we are not interested in that book. So we reproduced the book. And we're supposing that we're safe enough in not having.
Did you get anything in writing?
No, we didn't. No, we just did it by faith, asking the Lord to protect us, and so far He has. We have not had to worry about it. Well, as time went on, we didn't go through all the testimonies here one by one, but here is the see, now here's another book, number 18, that was in the Strode collection, and it's in terrible shape. It's in terrible shape.
It's coming apart.
But it was complete. I think probably the front page is probably down in there someplace here yet. A lady came to a meeting here one Sabbath, that was about a year ago, and she had 4 or 5 books, originals, and she had them sit there at the end of the table, and she had them, and she said, Brother Bates, I brought you something. And so she gave me, this was number 21, and she just gave them to me.
Okay. We need to take a little break here.
Okay.
We're going to interject a little health nugget.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
All right, now, of course, health is the focal point. If you aren't healthy, you don't even want to read and study. Anyway, back in '84, I finished our building over here, and I had worked 20 hours a day for about 4 or 5 months. Only took off Sabbath hours, and I destroyed my reserve energy. And about a week later, after the building was completed and we was operating, I collapsed. And my wife, of course, a nurse, trying to get me to somebody that would see what in the world was the matter. We went to the medical doctors, and they said I had prostate cancer and that I needed to be operated on immediately. So when we left the doctor's office, my wife said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go home and die like a dog. They're not going to fool with me. So we came home, and Anna got me into a health man. And he would charge us $300 for a visit once a month.
Wow.
And he was doing absolutely nothing but taking my $300. Well, at the time, we knew a man at Roseburg named Zentara. He's since passed away now. This was a number of years ago. Brother Zentara and his wife were both, brother, he was not an Adventist, both master herbalists. So we got an appointment, and we went up there. They examined me, And they said, well, you don't have cancer. What you've done is you've destroyed your reserve energy, and I have never gotten it all back even to this day. He says, I don't know what we can do. We can help you, but we cannot restore it all. Once you've destroyed your reserve energy, it's gone. So when you say you need to run across the street to keep from getting hit with a mail sack, that spurge is there, see? But when you get about 15 steps across the street, that energy's gone, and then you're walking, and the car hits you, and your mail is all over the street. So that reserve is when you make the demand, and it carries you through that, like walking up the hill. I can walk up the hill all right, but I can feel it in my legs, the strength going right out of my legs, and I don't have the power to get up the hill correctly. So reserve energy is very important, and don't overwork and destroy your reserve energy, because it's gone. Anyway, Brother Centaur charged me $25 for the first visit, gave me a sack of herbs, sent me home. A week and a half. And it was the seed program in there, and that was part of it. He turned me completely around. In a week and a half, I said to my wife, I says, he's got this thing. I do quite a lot of backhoe work. I have through the years. I own a backhoe. And I was so weak I couldn't pull myself in the backhoe. I had to park it on a slope or something and then kind of walk into the thing because I couldn't get up there. So in a week and a half, he began turning it around. The one for the liver is a beet. It's made from a garden beet, and it's on the program too. And a person should do it in the fall once a year to cleanse the liver. And it will shock the liver like nothing ever shocked the liver, and it takes the toxins out.
You call it the seed program?
That's the beet program, the other's the seed program. But the seeds, we use sprouting barley, we use flax, wheat, and you can use sunflower seed or a pumpkin seed, I think is probably the best. And you wash them good and you soak them in distilled water. So in the morning, this morning, we soak the seeds and get them ready, put them in a container full over the top with distilled water. Then at the same time, you would take some raisins, and say 2 or 3 handfuls of raisins in a jar, because you don't use those like you do the seeds. And you would soak them in distilled water. So then next morning, tomorrow morning, you take those seeds and you dump them into the osterizer and put about 3 or 4 tablespoons of raisins in there, because that gives you a little taste that you can stay in. And you whiz them up in the osterizer. Now you can put a banana in there, you can put a peach in there, you can put strawberries in there, whatever you want, so that you got a nice, flavorful milkshake. Now, we serve this to our patients, some of our patients. We had diabetics over here we'd have for a couple of years, never had a shot of insulin all the time they were here. And we simply used those little simple remedies. After the program, we thought about 3 months and then off. And if you want to go back on it 3 months, you could go back on it. But it's the zinc is what's the matter with the prostate cancer. There are 4 things that happen. The pancreas, the bladder, the prostate, and the kidneys. So you have 4 problems. The doctor will treat you for the prostate, but he doesn't treat you for the other 3. And unless you treat all 4, the one's not going to do it. See? And the doctor will treat effect. He never gets the cause. So we've had a lot of success with those simple things. And when you get to be about 50, 55, usually the men will begin to have that problem. You know? But I know in our area here a number of people that had that same thing that I had. And they had the operation, and these men were just ruined. They were just ruined.
How long did you take this potion?
Those seeds? I did it 3 months, and then I was off. Now I only take it. Now we haven't been onto it here nearly all summer again, but I'll go 3 months. Now there are about 3 herbs that are essential: echinacea, devil's claw, dandelion root. You should find a liquid herb and check that there's no additive in it, because in a health food store they'll put 51% alcohol in those herbs, and the herbs are of no value. They're almost useless. So the echinacea is for the immune system. I haven't had a cold, I think, since 1984 when I got over that last one, like the flu or. And that's in itself, it says a lot.
That says a lot, yeah.
The echinacea, the dandelion root, and the devil's claw. and you can get those in liquid herb.
Now, how often do you take those, and for how long?
We would take those every day for 2 weeks till we got on the thing, and then we would cut back. You can do 5 days and off 2 days, or you can do 4 days and off 3 days. But the system will get loaded up with this after a while, and then pretty soon it doesn't do you any good.
Right.
So you want any type of herb that you take, you need to go, say, 4 days on, 3 days off. Over the Sabbath, we don't take any pills, medication, or whatever we do. When I say medication, I say herbs.
How long do you do that?
With
All
the-
year long?
No, you can go 3 months with that. If you feel you need it, you should miss 3 months. You mean with the herbs, echinacea?
Yeah.
Oh, we did it all the time. We did it right along. After the first couple of weeks, we cut back to the 4-day, 3-day off.
Oh, I
And
see.
we've done that for years. But as long as we do that, we never have any trouble with it.
Year round. Okay.
And you'll see the benefits, especially when you're outside. It may be all right in the sunshine, but pretty soon it's going to be snowing and raining and you know what. And then,
I don't have to worry about the snow, but
yeah,
Rain and the cold.
plenty of rain, yeah.
And that the seeds. Tell me again. Now, how long do you do that, and how often?
That seed program should be followed about 3 months, and then you're off.
3 months.
Off for how long?
Well, you can, whatever you feel. If you feel like you need it, or if you want it for a food item, you can continue it.
But
It's
that's-
not something going to harm you.
That's to boost your energy.
Yeah, and you see, and it helps put the zinc and everything back. Now, we hear a lot about parasites. The pumpkin seeds take care of the parasites. They can't live where the pumpkin seed is.
Really?
So it's a very good. In fact, when I was a kid, I remember that we used to have to eat pumpkin seeds.
So that's also good for the parasites that are in the blood.
Right, absolutely. The echinacea helps, and then dandelion root all help cleanse the blood.
What did you say about the beet being for the liver?
Okay, the beets. The liver is the main problem in most cases. The liver is sick, and it's a garbage can, full of toxins. So how do you get the toxins out of there? Well, this beet program is probably one you're not going to like too well. But you take a 2-inch garden beet, you dice it up, clean it, dice it up, throw it in the osterizer. Then you take 1 fertile egg. It has to be a fertile egg. One where the roosters run out with the chickens. 1 fertile egg, you put that in there, raw. Then you put in 2 tablespoons of dry cottage cheese, 2 tablespoons of plain yogurt, and then you should have about a tablespoon of a protein powder. You can get that in the health food store. And you osterize that. And it should make you about an 8-ounce glass. And you drink that. That thing really hits the liver, cleanses the liver.
Now, how much of that do you drink?
Just that 8-ounce glass.
It's
just
an
what that'll produce.
8 ounce, and what is that? Once in a lifetime? That sounds like a gross drink. How often do you
we
need
say
that?
30 days.
Uh,
30 days once a year. Preferably in the
once a
fall.
year. Okay.
Preferably in the fall, when the beets come in, fresh beets.
Uh-huh.
But you should try to get beets that are not raised commercially, where they got all the pesticides and everything in them. So.
How in the world do you get a fertilized egg, or whatever it is?
The rooster runs with the hens,
When they have
and
a
it's
nuisance.
just there's natural.
Somebody who's got a chicken
A chicken, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
We'll
and
get
somebody
all the
has.
chickens.
Mostly all farms have their own chickens, because they're
Fresh
milk and
eggs.
their eggs and their meat and.
Where do you get the powdered
You know
cottage cheese?
You can, when you go to the
Well, we used to
grocery
have our
store,
own, but I don't know.
you ask them, and they have it in a little plastic bag, and it's dry curd cottage cheese. Now, it's peculiar that there's something in there, but Sister White mentions that in the egg there's a remedial agency for purifying the blood can be found no place else. Now, you're using this for a medicinal thing. This is not your diet. It's a medicinal thing. And the same with that activated stuff in the cottage cheese and in the yogurt. It's just simply a dietary thing that you're doing to try to eradicate the poison out of the system. I just read an article now, cottage cheese. What was the other thing they used? Oh, my dear, vitamin E. Something they're curing cancer just hand over fist. Simple. And you see, it's going to have to get simple, because if you get sick and you go into the hospital in a week, they own you.
That's right.
You lose everything you own.
That's right.
Everything you own. So that's the trick. First place, live so we don't get sick. See? And I believe the way to do that is with those simple herbs, echinacea, dandelion root, devil's claw, and using some of those simple little things. Now, with a raw diet, the seed program is raw. See, the seeds, 24 hours, they sprout, and it's live food.
So then when you drink that drink when you're on the sprouts, do you eat meals?
If you need it, you can. When I was, after that cancer thing that I went through, I went on raw food for 1 year. And then after the 1 year, I just went back eating like I always did. I eat pretty well like I always do now. I'm not a heavy eater, but I eat pretty much the way I always did. But we've been vegetarians since 1950, so it's been a long time for us, you know.
How old are you, Mr. Bates?
72.
72. So you've got your 62 years.
Mine is finished.
So you're
Not yet.
you're on
Borrowed time.
Borrowed time.
Yeah,
Dare I
yeah.
say that?
Yeah, you do. That's a fact. I thought about that.
Elder Bates, I'd like for you to tell us a story about your little health care center that you had.
Okay. We, back through the years, way back, we were just young people. The medical missionary work seemed to be what attracted us. And about 1956 was our first experience. And we were sent down to Southern California to help restore and build a little sanitarium. They've been trying to work on it for a number of years, and they just couldn't get it done. Well, because I'm a builder, we told them we would go, and they offered us $100 a month and a place to park our trailer house. So we moved down there, and we stayed for 1 year. Now, we remodeled the place, completely ready for patients. Patients were in the building when we left there. Now, the church, that church that we belonged to at the time, destroyed the work. They destroyed it. So we attempted the same work in Sacramento, California, and the church that we were involved with at that time destroyed the work. So when we moved to Oregon in 1965, we decided that we still had the desire.
Can you back up a minute? How did they destroy
The ministers would get involved and divide the people. And once you've got the people divided, there's not enough income, not enough people to work. At this first place, I remember when we first got there, they had a long table, a lot longer than this one. And at mealtime, there'd be people lined up on all sides of this table. And I went to the people that owned the place, and I said, who are all these people? Oh, they're the people that live here. I says, you know, I haven't seen the people working. Well, no, they don't do anything. So that meal, I stood on my feet, and I said, now I want to speak to everybody here. If you aren't working, don't be at this table the next meal. Because the only people at work come to this table. We couldn't even pass food the next meal. There was just three of us, my wife and I, my mother was there. That's all of us who was there. The rest of them were offended and left. But that was what the problem was. All kinds of ministers and nobody to do the work. See? So that's how they would destroy. Other things got involved. Human invention got involved. They wanted us to promote a human invention, and we wouldn't do that.
They weren't staying with the pattern that had been given.
No, not a simple work for the poor people. It was a promotion deal. So the same in Sacramento. I gave Bible studies in Sacramento, and among those people that we brought to church, a man and his wife, older people, very dedicated people. He'd been an Adventist 75 years. And he said, Brother Bates, I've coasted for 75 years. Now, isn't that a startling thing to say? And this is what most people are doing. They're just in neutral coasting. I come home from work one night, and there was a message there that Brother Dimmick was in the hospital. So I rushed over to the county hospital, a huge place. And as I walked down the hall, I got the room number. And as I walked down the hall, there was a group of people standing in front of his door. So when I got there, it was his children. And this one big burly man who walked up, and he just grabbed me by the shirt collar, and he said, there's no use of you going in there, because they knew who I was. He says, he don't recognize us, and he's not going to recognize you. I said, oh, listen, mister, I just got his hand. I says, he will recognize me. And in that door I went. Well, Sister Dimmick was on one side of the bed, and I walked up to the other side. And I just reached out, and I kissed him right on the mouth. and the tears just burst out of his eyes, and he died, just like that. He was waiting.
He was
for me to
waiting
get
for
there,
you.
Waiting for me. That woman and that man donated their home to the medical missionary work. So the people that were responsible for this church, now this is a Reformed church, not the Adventist church, the people that were promoting this work, there were 7 people on the committee. And when Sister Demick said that we're going to give you this property, I said, not to me only, give it to the committee. So she did that. In a week's time, there were only 3 people on the committee, and those 3 people squandered the money. And I felt guilty over that for years, tried to protect the money, and I was the one that had her give it to that. I know as years went by, I was visiting in Sacramento, was at another church, and I was asked to sing. I used to sing a lot. And Sister Demick was present at that meeting. And when I came down from the rostrum, she met me right in the middle of the church. And she says, Brother Verne, you sang that song for me. Well, I didn't know what to say. I hadn't seen it for quite a long time. And she says, I have something for you. And she handed me her Bible. I still have it here someplace. I said, I can't take your Bible. She says, you have to take my Bible. So she gave me her Bible. In a few days, she was dead. She was gone. Now, those people are going to be responsible for that. So,
Tell us what happened in Oregon when you started.
When we left there, we was determined that somehow we could make a success. So we moved here to this area. We had set up our business over on the other side of Grants Pass, and in a period of time, we had about 30 people coming to church pretty regularly. And I presented the medical missionary work to them, and it was decided among us that we would buy a property and begin medical missionary work. So my wife and I, we had a new home I'd built, and we sold our home. In fact, traded it in on this property. And we were the only ones that put money in it. And it was only a short time until it just fell apart as far as the rest were concerned. But we had all our money in here, and we kept promoting it. We fought the county about 7 years before we finally got all the tests approved. And then we began to build.
The county did not want you to build it.
No, they didn't want me to build here. The state of Oregon wants no institutions out of the city limits, all in the city limits. We wanted it out of town. So we finally got built. They fought us all the way, but we built it according to their regulations. Ended up, after we got operating, we got patients in the building. They just every few weeks they'd hit us. They'd come and examine our patients, maybe take 2 or 3. We were abusing our patients. But they'd send to the hospital, and the hospitals would examine, and nothing the matter with the patients. So it was just a focus is all it was. It finally got on after about 5 or 6 years. We operated about 8. Finally it got real bad, and they brought 24 abuse complaints against us. When the state came to read those, because I asked to be read in front of our employees, we had 18 employees. So we brought all the employees together, and the state lady came and read the complaints. Now we have a copy of them here yet. And they were so ridiculous. One would say, you don't feed your patients enough food. Then pretty soon down the page would say, you feed your patients too much food. It was just a hocus pocus thing. See? So the state lady, she was so disgraced. She said, I won't even finish reading this thing. That's ridiculous. And they have a unit that the state provides that will inspect nursing homes for their license for the next year. It's called CCMU, Client Care Monitoring Unit. And those people are tough. The one lady that was the head of it in the field work was a Seventh-day Adventist. And we knew her well. Her name was Miner, Mariel Miner, I think it was. I think that was the name, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, when she would come to our place, she would spend 4 days. And we'd have 1 or 2 things that we needed correct. Maybe a handrail or whatever it was. And we had no trouble with CCMU, but we had trouble with the ombudsman. And they set this phony charge up against us, and they used some of our past employees. Now, when you're running a nursing home, if you can't get good bona fide people to help you, there's only one way, only one thing. You can choose ex-convicts, you can harlots, pimps, drug addicts. That's about what you get in nursing homes to take care of your old people, because you can't get good skilled people. It's just
they don't pay them enough.
that way. No, you're going to pay. No, So you got that type of field to choose from, see. So we'd get a worker in here, and if it didn't turn out for us in a few weeks or a few days, we would fire them, get them out of here, because we didn't want that influence in this place. So those people the state went to, and they formed complaints against us. Now, when it was finally lodged against us, we demanded a copy of those formal charges. It took us 8 months to get a copy of those things. It was tough. All the state employees that were involved in this, every one of them lost their jobs. Isn't that strange? The state forced them to quit because it was too big a stink. Now, if we could have gotten a lawyer to help us, we would have taken them to court, but we couldn't find a lawyer in the state of Oregon to help us. So, as it ended out, finally, we could see that they were going to break the institution. Along about July 87, the first charge by State Industrial that we had not fulfilled our obligation with our State Industrial insurance payments. But they sent us a notice every month we would make the installment. So Anna said to him, she says, I don't see how we can be behind because you send the statement and we send the money. And we've done it every month. Well, they had put us in a different category and we owed them $6,000. So I said, all right, we will include another $1,000 in each monthly payment until we got it paid for. That was fine. So at the end of that period, they contacted us that we were $7,000 in arrears. So I said to Anna, I said, now you tell him to come to our office. Send a man here that knows what he's doing and prove to us that we're behind anything. So they sent a man here, and he couldn't prove it. So we knew that they was just bilking us out of money, see. They wrote us a letter. Final adjustment was $250, and the case was closed. So we sent the $250, and it was closed. Well, as soon as that was done, the state ombudsman hit us, and that was the tough one. State ombudsman. An ombudsman is one that's kind of like a watchdog, making sure that everything is correct, and it's crooked from the ground up. So the state ombudsman got involved, kind of a floozy type lady, just a young lady. It was a joke, and we finally ended up in court. I guess before that, we notified the state that we were closing the building. We lacked 4 years of having that thing paid for. We closed the building. We give them 30 days to move the patients. It took them 45 days to move the patients. In less than 3 months, over half of our people died from that move. It was a traumatic thing, you know. So.
And how long had some of these patients been with you?
Some 8 years.
8 years.
Vegetarian diet.
What kind of patients were these?
We specialize mostly in Alzheimer care.
You said vegetarian diet?
It was vegetarian, completely vegetarian. We did serve milk, eggs, and cheese. We were forced to serve milk, eggs, and cheese.
Oh, well, that.
But everything else we did was no coffee, no tea, no alcohol, anything like that.
You try to follow the pattern.
Yeah. And they really fought us. There was 5 doctors in Grants Pass that took up our part. One, Dr. Kelly, when the first lawsuit was over, he closed his office and he moved to Washington. He says, I wouldn't practice in a state like Oregon.
How are you treating these Alzheimer's patients?
Well, that's an interesting point. Other than just a plain simple vegetarian diet, we did a lot of singing here. We'd have sings in the morning, sings in the evening, Sabbath, we'd have 2 or 3 meetings, and we did a lot of singing. And these people would get in there and they'd just cry buckets of tears, you know, that music could get to them. But we required our patients to drink water. An 8-ounce glass of water every 2 hours, 24 hours a day. So at night, the attendant would come in, wake the patient up, and give them the glass of water, and they'd drink everything they could drink. And the patient would lay down and go back to sleep. They wet themselves, just terribly. As soon as that patient was wet, the attendant was asked to change the patient, take the clothes to the laundry room, and wash the clothes. Now, it was quite an active thing because we wore out a washing machine every 3 months.
Wow.
It was kind of a spendy item. But what we were doing was we was cleaning the system with water. And we noticed that if the Alzheimer patient wasn't too far along, we could stop it right where it was at. They never did get any worse. And the fact is, they would become a rational person. And they loved us more than they would love their families. It was just a constant contact with them, you know. And we would tell the families when they come, now, don't be surprised in a short time that they would love us more than they love you. I recall one case that we had. The phone rang one afternoon, and this daughter had her mother was going to be put in the institution in Salem, a mental institution. And she said, I've heard of you people that you take difficult cases. Well, I said, well, we didn't kind of like that type of reputation because we don't want to just take difficult cases. But she says, my mother is going to be taken to the insane asylum, and she says she's screaming all the time. So we talked it over, and we finally decided we'll try it for 30 days. So they brought her. Well, nobody in the building slept for 3 days. I mean, this woman screamed day and night. It was tough. Anna had noticed she was on, I think, 18 different tranquilizers. So Anna began to take them away one at a time, and until she got down to one sleeping type shot, that just before she would go to sleep. Now her name was Stella, and Stella in 30 days became so rational that you could sit and talk with her, and it was marvelous what happened to this lady just by getting her off the drugs and of course the water. You see. So the daughter came one day and she says, "Oh boy," she says, "my mother's so much better. I think I'll take her home." So Anna said, "Well, now we're not against that. We think that's nice for you to do that. But here's one thing: if she goes back and does these things again, don't bring her back to Echo Cove. We're not going to go through this a second time." So they took her. 2 weeks. The state caseworker in Center Point called us. Would you please take Stella back? Says, no, we won't take her back. And she ended up in the institution. But they put her right back on those drugs again, and she just went nuts. Right? It's not a game.
No.
This is a life and death situation.
So why do you think they wanted your facility closed?
Well, if you had a group of Alzheimer patients out here that weren't dying in 10 years or 8 years or 5 years, and you were paying the bill, what do you think you'd do? Get rid of them, see? They want these people out as fast as they can get them. They could care less. They could care less. They had a hearing in Salem over our incident. And they invited all the families to come. Well, there was one man there, Bill Buckley was his name. His mother was with us for about 8 years. And he went to that meeting. And they brought all these charges out. And then they asked the families if these charges were true. There was not one charge that could be proved was true. It was all a put-up situation. And every single one of it. Bill Buckley, I think he came and told us this. Shortly afterwards, he got cancer. And on his deathbed, his wife told me this later. That, now, I didn't know if we had any influence in Bill Buckley's life at all. He was an ex-cop, tough type fella. And as Bill was dying, he said to his wife, he said, I don't even know if there is a God, but I'm going to serve the God that Verne serves.
Amen.
And I fully expect that he had his peace with Christ, you know. You never know the influence that you're having on people's life.
Yeah. Ellen White makes a statement to that effect as well, that our experience, our lives are sometimes the only Bible that some people
Yes,
read.
absolutely, yeah.
Elder Bates, I don't know how much time I have left on this tape, probably not too much. I'd like to ask you, if you were speaking to someone who doesn't know about the books, or someone that has seen them and doesn't believe them, or maybe still in the structure, doesn't know about the separation, can you give us some, I sound like Connie Chung, don't I? Can you give us some final words on, is Jesus coming? And when's he coming?
Yeah. What
do we need to do?
Well, I think that preparation period is the very most important thing that you can say to people. It's very hard for us to say, well, don't go to the Adventist church, or don't go to the Baptist church, or don't go to the Lutheran church. But did you know that the angels are already separating God's people?
Amen.
It's happening in all the churches. If I was to ask you this question, where is the image of the beast formed? What would you say, Joe?
Where?
Where is the image to the beast formed? Now, I know you're a teacher, and I know you've been taught all kinds of things, but where do you think the image of the beast is formed? What do you think?
In the heart.
In the heart? Well, that's true. But you know who promotes it?
Adventist Church. Adventist
It
Church.
comes from the church.
Sure.
And James White says that all the good has to separate from the churches. Let's see if we can find that quotation here. Let's see if I had that. I think I used that this morning. This is Life Incidents, and it's 245. Now listen how he reads this. The message we're saying is in the books. If you and I will read these books.
That's why you keep drumming on these originals, is that
That's where the message is.
there are key things that are missing from. It's not that there's not truth in the red books. It's just that there's not all the truth, and we can tell a lie by omission as well as by commission.
Yeah. Or even yeah. Now that's a good thing. That omission and commission. I'm glad you said that. That is very important. We have learned to accept things as they come to us, never challenging anything. Now listen to what this says. But many of the people of God are yet to be found in connection with these churches, and are yet to be called out. And when this shall be accomplished, and the good have all left the nominal churches, when the saving influence of such is all withdrawn from their communion, then we shall have a most fitting material for the formation of an image to the beast, for they will then be ready for any acts of persecution and oppression against the people of God, which Satan can induce those to enter upon who are led captive by him at will. So when all the good has been taken out, then only the dross remains. Now, Sister White wrote this. This is James White's writing here. But Sister White wrote this very thing. And I'll give you, I don't know how much tape we got left.
What book was that?
Huh?
What
That
book?
was Life Incidents. It's 245, written by James White.
Okay.
When
And
was that
it's
book?
probably about 1860. Do I have a date on this one? I don't know if I have a date on this one. 1868, yes.
But Elder Bates, the ship is going through.
Yes, that's the thing you hear. But we just read a quotation that the ship was going to go,
Hell.
yeah, this thing. If you would see, I haven't been in Adventist Church for many years. I don't go there. I don't pass out literature there. I don't try to discourage their meetings. But if somebody will give me a hearing, I'll be glad to sit down and talk with them. See, I'm going to take two books here, and I'm going to have you help me. I'd like to have Joe help me too. This is Prophets and Kings, which is a good book. It's a very nice book to read. But
Did Ellen
there's
White
some-
write it?
Huh?
Did Ellen White write
No,
it?
she didn't write the thing. And here's where our problem lies. There's problems in the book. All right, the time is not far distant. You see, it's all underlined. Let Joe have that. And let's take it from another book here, too. Now, what we've done is we've simply taken and we found a quotation that we've read, we've liked, but we want to proof it. You do that with the old books. You'll want to proof the book. So you find a companion quotation and you compare them, see what's happened. Now, I'm going to let you read this one. This is from Volume 5 of the Church's Testimony book. Excuse me. You can compare this with the Battle Creek Letters, 1882, and I'm trying to look for the page. I think it's page 37 or so. I don't see it written right down there, but I can find it in Battle Creek Letters. Now, that top paragraph. Now, I want you to read it carefully, and Joe, you can follow us. Now, listen to what's just read now. The time is not far distant.
The time is not far distant when the test will come to every soul. The mark of the beast will be urged upon us.
Okay.
Little change there.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
What's yours say?
The observance of the false Sabbath will be urged upon us. Read yours again.
The mark of the beast will be urged upon us.
Okay.
See, it's turned. It's turned. This is the favorite thing to do.
Those who have step by step yielded to worldly demands and conformed to worldly customs will not find it a hard matter to yield to the powers that be, rather than subject themselves to derision, insult, threatened imprisonment, and death.
Okay. This one has a one sentence in between.
Yeah.
What's it say?
Added something.
Yeah, added something.
Adding to is as
Yeah.
bad as taking away, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Read on.
Yeah.
The contest is between the commandments of God and the commandments of men.
I don't have it.
Gone. Okay.
In this time,
All right, now this is the sentence we're watching. Now watch carefully. Go ahead.
in this time, the gold will be separated from the dross in the church.
Now wait, Joe,
Okay.
what you have?
At that time.
At that time, go ahead and read the rest of it.
At that time, the gold will be separated from the dross.
Period.
Period.
Where is it separated then? Where is it separated? It didn't tell you,
It
did
doesn't
it?
tell you.
All right, now his says, where is it separated?
In the church.
In the church. The gold will be separated from the dross in the church. Okay, what does that mean? What does it mean?
That it's going to be
They're going to be pulled out
People in
Where's
the
the
church.
gold? The gold is out.
of the church.
The dross stays in.
yes.
Now they've turned it around. No, all the bad are going to be shaken out, and only the good stay in the church. That's
But
not what the
they've
Sixth
twisted
Rite
it.
wrote.
No.
They've twisted it.
They twisted it, you see.
Aren't the wheat and the tares supposed to grow together?
They are to grow together to the end of probationary time. Are we in the end of probationary time? And how many angels do the separating? 3 angels. They're the ones who do the separating. It's not the minister. He can't kick you out of the church. It's not his business. I hear it all the time. Well, the minister come and inform me and kick me out of the church. This happened in Oklahoma City. A brother called us. He says, I have to have some books. I got to have 2 sets, nearly $1,000 he sent. Okay, we sent the books. Finally they arrived, and he told us on the phone. He says, now tonight we're having a meeting, and the people that's left with him, they're going to open their books all at one time. And he says, we're going to pray over the books, and we're going to open them up so we all have at the same time. He spoke in the church. When the pastor was gone, he filled in for him. So he got using the spirit of prophecy too much. So the pastor came and says, now look, if you're going to continue to fill in for me, you have to stop using the spirit of prophecy. Well, the brother says, well, I can't do that. He says, the whole thing is built on the spirit of prophecy.
Right.
He said, I'm just telling you. So when his turn came again, he used the spirit of prophecy. The following week, the pastor came to him and just handed him a slip. Said, you've been disfellowshipped from the church. He says, why? Because you won't stop using the spirit of prophecy. He said, well, I didn't even have a chance to talk to the board. He says, no, there'd be no meeting for you. And out he went. Now all that faithfulness and determination meant nothing to them. Out you go. It's a tragedy. But that's exactly what Sister White said. The gold will be separated from the dross in the church. So out we go. Out we go, one by one. Now, if you want to be faithful, if you think you can be faithful in the church, then that's what you should try to do. But I also know, she says, you cannot unite with those that are corrupt and yet remain pure.
Amen.
You cannot do it.
Amen.
You've got to get out from it. You're not leaving the truth,
No,
No.
see? You're taking the truth with you.
that's right.
And then people say, well, what do I do with these souls? Well, you take them to Jesus, of course.
Yes.
We have some friends who we used to fellowship with frequently. And their burden is, some of them have Sabbath school classes, and their burden is that they feel like because they still have positions within the church that they have an influence, that they're reluctant to give up right now. And is that safe?
Well, in my case, I would think if you're presenting the truth, that situation would force you out. The church would kick you out. Now, church is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. In the beginning, in Genesis 7, I think it is, it speaks about, maybe chapter 7, it says, Babel. You remember reading it? They went down to the land of Shinar, the descendants of Ham. They went down to Shinar, and on a plain, beautiful country, and they built them a tower, a church, and a city. And this tower was a magnificent thing. Now, the name it's in your list in your Bible is Babel. It's not confusion in that chapter, it's Babel. Now, in the Assyrian language, Babel, you look it up in your dictionary, Babel is interpreted gate of God. So the church became the gate of God. Now when you get to the next chapter, it became what? Babylon, which it gives the interpretation of confusion. And what happened when the angels came down there to investigate what was going on, they found that they were proud and lifted up and doing all kinds of things in idolatry. And the language was confounded. Now we say that that's where Japanese come from, and Chinese, and German, and Swedish, and whatever. But I think it has a different meaning. And I'm going to support that with a quotation from the Spirit of Prophecy. Spalding again, 481. Now listen how this is written. It's very interesting. Early in my youth, I was asked several times, "Are you a prophet?" I have ever responded, "I'm the Lord's messenger." I know that many have called me a prophet, but I have made no claim to this title. My Savior declared me to be his messenger. Your work, he instructed me, is to bear my word. Strange things will arise, and in your youth I set you apart to bear the message to the erring ones, to carry the word before unbelievers, and with pen and voice to reprove from the word actions that are not right. Exhort from the word. I will make my word open to you. It shall not be as a strange language. So when the message came to Ellen White, there was no confusion, no strange language. Now this is what happened back here in the land of Shinar. Their language became confounded. In other words, one was teaching one thing, another was teaching another thing, and somebody else was teaching another thing, and confusion was the result. And if you would go to an Adventist assembly of people and ask them a pointed question of a doctrine, you'd probably get a half a dozen different reports of what that doctrine teaches.
I've done that. Very
Yeah,
thing.
I have
true.
to. Yeah, I have to. Now listen. I will make my word open to you. It shall not be a strange language. In the true eloquence of simplicity, with voice and pen, the messages that I shall give shall be heard from one who has never learned in the schools. My spirit and my power shall be with you. Be not afraid of man, for my shield shall protect you. It is not you that speaketh, it is the Lord that giveth the messages of warning and reproof. Never deviate from the truth under any circumstances. Give the light I shall give you. The messages for these last days shall be written in books, and shall stand immortalized, to testify against those who have once rejoiced in the light, but have been led to give it up because of the seductive influences of evil. So the books were immortalized. What does that mean?
Made alive
Forever.
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 Yeah. Little Great Controversy 117. This holy book, the Bible, was immortal. And the same with the testimonies, the original testimonies. And that's the reason why we are stressing so hard. You must understand the truth for yourself. You must understand for yourself. Well, do we continue with some of these books a little bit more? You think we got enough?
Sure. I got a little time left on this tape, so
Have you got a little time left?
Yep.
Well, let's just take a look at a few more then. As the testimonies progressed, they put them in cloth bindings. And these books have been, of course, altered some. Now, we didn't have number 4 of the testimonies, so we borrowed it from this set. And we're pretty positive that we still need an original number 4. Now, we're not going to discount these books because I'm sure they did their appointed work as far as the church was concerned. But was Christ satisfied with that type of work? You see? That little book I just gave you, Volume 5, 434, you cannot remove one word and be safe. Everyone tells me, "Oh, that don't make any difference, that little book. That word doesn't make any
Volume
difference."
5?
Yeah, 434. Read the top of the page. 434.
God has given us specific directions so that no one need err. Quote, "Man shall not live by bread alone," he says, "but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." End of quote. The truth given by inspiration is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. Not by one word, not by many words, but by every word that God has spoken shall man live. You cannot disregard one word, a single injunction that he has given, however trifling it may seem to you, and be safe.
Now just think of that. You can't remove one word, a single injunction, and be safe. Now I don't know if you want to live on the curve or not.
No.
See? So why don't we have the right to demand that thus saith the Lord?
I like
Yes.
your illustration about the Queen's coach driver.
Oh,
and how close
isn't
we're gonna
that
get to-
something?
Yeah.
What a story. Yeah, right out to the very edge. It would go right out the edge and everything will be all right. No, we have to be safe. This is. Have you ever thought what it's going to be like to spend eternity in darkness? To be as though you never was? I try to tell this to some of my children. That's a cold situation. There's some General Conference committee, an earnest appeal to the church in 1876. To my knowledge, that never has been printed. Those are just little books that. Here's another book, Life Sketches, 1880. We've reproduced this book. This is a nice book. This book has already been tampered with before James White died. He died the next year after it was printed. And I don't think there's a title page in. Oh yeah, here it is. Life Sketches, Her Ancestor, Early Life, Christian Experience, and Extensive Labors of Elder James White and his wife, Mrs. Ellen G. White, 1880. A lady sent us one she was going to reproduce. And we looked at it. I hadn't even read it, but Anna was looking at it. And she read in there James White's obituary. I said, if that's in 1880, why was James White's obituary in the book when he didn't die till 81? So we sent one of our books and we contacted the lady and said, we don't think you better work on this book. So the book was that pilfered. Now here's another book, Sketches from the Life of Paul. We think it's a very good book. This book will probably be one of the next ones that we'll do. We haven't done this book yet.